The fog clung to the cobblestones of London's West End like a shroud on that fateful evening in 1935. The Silver Marquee Theatre glittered under the marquee lights, its silver facade a beacon for the elite. Inside, the air hummed with anticipation for the premiere of Shadows of Deceit. Sir Reginald Harrington, the imperious owner, reclined in his private box, a glass of champagne in hand. As the curtain rose, a muffled gasp echoed from above. Moments later, the audience's murmurs turned to screams. Sir Reginald lay slumped, a silk scarf twisted around his neck, strangled in the midst of applause. Who among the glittering crowd had silenced the master of the stage forever? The little Belgian detective Hercule Poirot, seated nearby, stroked his mustache. The game was afoot. Chapter 1. The Glamorous Arrival. The fog that evening in 1935 was not merely weather, it was a living thing, thick as wet wool, curling around the ankles of London like a conspiratorial cat. It muffled the clop of horses' hooves on the embankment, swallowed the neon of the Savoy's sign, and finally slithered into the narrow throat of Marquee Alley, where the Silver Marquee Theatre rose like a silvered phoenix from the grime of the city. The building had been unveiled only 2 years earlier, a gleaming Art Deco temple of entertainment paid for, the gossip columns insisted, by the bottomless purse of Sir Reginald Harrington. Tonight was the premiere of Shadows of Deceit, a play whispered to be the most daring drama of the decade, and every taxi, every Rolls-Royce Phantom, every discreet Daimler in London seemed to converge upon its doors. Hercule Poirot stepped from his cab with the precision of a dancer executing a pas de deux with the pavement. The fog parted for him reluctantly, as though resenting the intrusion of such immaculate order. His patent leather shoes gleamed, his overcoat, cut by the finest tailor in Brussels, fell in perfect lines. The famous mustache, 2 symmetrical crescents of black, was waxed to points sharp enough to prick vanity itself. He paused beneath the Marquis's electric glow, reading the silver letters that spelled out the evening's promise. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his breath a small white cloud. "Even the fog comes to pay homage." At his side, Captain Arthur Hastings, tall, pink-cheeked, eternally astonished by the world's capacity for wickedness, unfolded an invitation the color of fresh cream. "I say, Poirot, this is dashed exciting. Never thought I'd see the inside of the Silver Marquee. They say the seats are stuffed with swan's down and the champagne flows from solid silver fountains." Poirot's green eyes glinted. "Swan's down, Hastings? Pah! The only thing stuffed tonight will be the egos of the fashionable. But come, the curtain rises in 20 minutes and Hercule Poirot is never late, except perhaps to his own funeral." They joined the slow, glittering river of guests funneling through the glass doors. Pearls the size of pigeon eggs gleamed at throats. Top hats were doffed with theatrical flourish. Cigarette holders traced lazy arabesques in the air. A photographer from the Tatler lunged forward, flashbulb popping like a miniature gunshot. Poirot allowed one dignified profile before gliding onward, Hastings blinking away after images. Inside, the foyer was a cathedral of chrome and marble. A chandelier the size of a small motor car dripped crystal stalactites. Beneath it, a string quartet sawed away at a waltz that sounded suspiciously like the theme from The Merry Widow. Uniformed ushers in silver braid guided patrons with the solemnity of pallbearers. The air smelled of tuberose, Havana tobacco, and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. "Observe, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice pitched low beneath the chatter. "The theater is a microcosm of society. Here the masks are literal as well as figurative." Hastings followed his gaze. Near the grand staircase stood Sir Reginald Harrington himself, a colossus in white tie and tails. He was built like a retired prizefighter who had discovered champagne and late nights, broad shoulders straining the seams of his jacket, a face that might have been handsome once but had settled into bullish arrogance. His laugh boomed across the foyer, scattering lesser mortals. At his side, Lady Victoria Harrington, tall, willow-slender, dressed in emerald silk that shimmered like a dragonfly's wing, smiled with the brittle perfection of Sèvres porcelain. Her gloved hand rested on her husband's arm, but Poirot noted the white knuckles, the slight tremor. "Sir Reginald and Lady Victoria," Hastings whispered. "Heard they row like cat and dog behind closed doors. She wanted to sell the theater last year. He refused. Said it was his monument." "Monuments," Poirot replied, "are frequently erected over graves, mon ami." A ripple of movement parted the crowd. Marquis Duval approached, sleek as a seal in midnight blue, his producer's smile sharp enough to slice prosciutto. Duval's own theaters, the Sapphire and the Onyx, were Harrington's only serious rivals in London. The two men shook hands with the enthusiasm of fencers testing blades. "Reginald, old chap," Duval said, voice oily with bonhomie. "Another triumph, I'm sure, though I hear the critics are sharpening their knives." Harrington's laugh was a bark. "Let them sharpen. Shadows of Deceit will cut deeper. Elena Rossi in the lead. There's your box office poison turned to gold." Duval's smile thinned. "Elena is temperamental. One hopes she remembers her lines." Poirot's ears pricked. Temperamental actresses, rival producers, marital discord, already the ingredients of a souffle that might collapse or explode. From the mezzanine balcony drifted the scent of jasmine and something sharper. Garlic, perhaps, or intrigue. Elena Rossi herself descended the staircase like a goddess, granting mortals a glimpse of Olympus. Her gown was scarlet satin cut on the bias, clinging to every curve. A diamond clip shaped like a dagger pinned a curl at her temple. Cameras flashed, fans squealed. She blew kisses with the absent-minded grace of royalty, then glided to Harrington's side. Her hand brushed his lapel with proprietary intimacy. "Reginaldo, caro," she purred, the Italian vowels rolling like Chianti. "You promised me champagne before the curtain." Harrington's eyes devoured her. "Anything for my leading lady." Lady Victoria's smile froze into something that might have been carved from ice. "How thoughtful, darling," she said, each syllable a shard. "Do fetch Miss Rossi her champagne. I'm sure the rest of us can manage without." A nervous titter rippled through nearby onlookers. Poirot's mustache twitched in approval. The drama had begun before the footlights rose. Hastings nudged him. "There's Geoffrey Blaine, the director. Looks like he swallowed a lemon." Blaine hovered near the cloakroom, a thin man in a rumpled dinner jacket, hair standing up as though he'd been electrocuted by inspiration. His eyes darted like a ferret's. When Harrington beckoned, he scurried over, clutching a leather-bound script annotated in red ink. "Sir Reginald, the lighting cue for Act 2, Scene 3. "Later, Blaine," Harrington snapped. "Can't you see I'm entertaining?" Blaine flushed crimson. "Of course, sir, only the follow-spot operator is new and—" Harrington turned his back. Blaine stood rooted, script trembling in his hands, then slunk away toward the pass door marked Stage. Poirot filed the exchange away. A director scorned, a producer slighted, an actress possessive, a wife humiliated. Delicious. Near the box office, a young woman in severe navy stood apart from the revelry, clipboard in hand. Miss Clara Winters, Harrington's private secretary, was the antithesis of theatrical glamour. Spectacles, sensible shoes, hair pinned in a bun so tight it might have been welded. Yet her eyes, sharp, watchful, missed nothing. She checked names against a list with the efficiency of a customs officer. "Miss Winters," Poirot approached, bowing with old-world courtesy. "Hercule Poirot at your service. I believe you hold tickets for myself and Captain Hastings." Clara's gaze flicked up, assessing. Box C, seats 1 and 2. Complimentary, courtesy of Sir Reginald. Her voice was crisp, educated, with the faintest trace of northern vowels. He wished to thank you for resolving that unpleasantness at the Savoy last month. Poirot inclined his head. Sir Reginald is generous, though I confess the pleasure was mine. Clara's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Enjoy the performance, Monsieur Poirot, and do try the interval canapés. The smoked salmon is flown in from Scotland this morning. As she turned away, Poirot noted the faintest tremor in her hand as she passed the tickets. Nerves, or something deeper. Hastings accepted the tickets with boyish delight. Box C, practically on stage. We'll see every whisker. Whiskers, Hastings? I assure you the only whiskers of interest tonight will be those of the criminal, if indeed a crime is committed. Hastings laughed. You're joking. It's only a play. Poirot's eyes gleamed. We shall see. The house bells chimed, 3 melodic notes descending like a warning. Ushers materialized to herd the glittering flock toward the auditorium. Poirot and Hastings ascended the sweeping staircase to the grand circle, passing beneath a mural of nymphs and satyrs cavorting in silver foliage. The corridor to Box C was carpeted in midnight blue plush. The door, mahogany inlaid with mother-of-pearl, stood ajar. Inside, the box was a jewel. 4 velvet chairs, a tiny table bearing a silver bucket with a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, and a view of the stage framed by crimson curtains heavy as a monarch's robe. Poirot settled into the front chair, Hastings beside him. Below, the orchestra tuned with discordant squeaks. The audience rustled like a forest before a storm. Observe the arrangement, Poirot murmured. Box A, Sir Reginald and Lady Victoria. Box B, Marquis Duval and party. Box D, reserved but empty, curious. Hastings peered over the rail. Perhaps a late arrival. Or, Poirot said softly, someone who prefers the shadows. The house lights dimmed in 3 majestic stages, each plunge greeted by a collective intake of breath. A spotlight carved a perfect circle center stage. Geoffrey Blaine stepped into it, script forgotten, to deliver a brief speech of welcome. His voice cracked on the word genius, earning a smattering of polite applause. Then the spotlight widened, the curtains parted with a whisper of silk, and shadows of deceit began. The play was melodrama of the highest order, a tale of a wealthy industrialist haunted by sins of the Great War, a beautiful widow with a secret, a forged will, a midnight rendezvous in a ruined abbey. Elena Rossi as the widow commanded the stage with a voice that could shift from honey to venom in a heartbeat. The audience was spellbound. Poirot, however, watched not the actors but the boxes. Sir Reginald leaned forward, engrossed. Lady Victoria sat rigid, gloved hands clenched in her lap. Duval smoked a cigarette in a jade holder, exhaling toward the ceiling with theatrical boredom. In the stalls, Clara Winters had taken a seat near the aisle, notebook open, pen poised, though no notes were taken. Act 1 built to a crescendo. The industrialist confronted by his bastard son, a pistol produced, a shot, blanks, of course, ringing out. The curtain fell to thunderous applause. House lights rose for the interval. Hastings stretched. Top hole stuff, eh? Though I can't quite follow who's double-crossing whom. Poirot rose. Come, we circulate. They descended to the crush bar where champagne flowed and gossip fermented. Poirot accepted a coupe but did not drink, his eyes scanning faces. Elena Rossi held court near the fireplace, surrounded by admirers. Duval cornered a critic from the stage, voice low and urgent. Lady Victoria stood alone by a window, staring into the fog. Poirot approached. Lady Victoria, enchantée, Hercule Poirot. She turned, startled, then composed herself. Monsieur Poirot, I've heard of your talents. Her voice was low, cultured, with an undercurrent of strain. Reginald insists on inviting celebrities, even detectives. A detective is merely a student of human nature, madame, and tonight human nature is on display in abundance. Her laugh was brittle. You have no idea. Before Poirot could probe, Sir Reginald's voice boomed across the bar. Victoria, stop monopolizing the guest of honor. He strode over, clapping Poirot on the shoulder with enough force to fell a lesser man. Poirot, damned glad you could come. After the Savoy business, felt I owed you. Enjoying the show? Immensely, Poirot said, steadying his mustache. Though I confess the real drama may yet unfold off stage. Harrington's eyes narrowed a fraction, then he laughed. Always the sleuth, eh? Relax, man. Tonight is about art. The bells chimed again. 5 minutes to curtain. The crowd surged back to their seats. Poirot lingered, watching Harrington guide his wife ahead, her spine stiff as a ramrod. Box C reclaimed them. The second act began. Betrayals deepened, the bastard son revealed as the industrialist's partner, the widow's secret, a hidden fortune in blood diamonds. Tension coiled like a spring. Poirot's attention drifted to the private boxes. Duval had vanished from Box B. Lady Victoria's seat was empty. Curious, Poirot whispered. Then midway through a heated exchange on stage, a sound, not part of the script, cut through the theater. A muffled thud from Box A, followed by a sharp intake of breath. The audience, absorbed, did not notice, but Poirot did. He leaned forward. Lady Victoria re-entered her box, adjusting her glove. Sir Reginald remained in his chair, head slumped forward as though asleep. The spotlight shifted. The play continued. Elena Rossi delivered a searing monologue about lost love. Another thud, this one unmistakable. A woman's cry, quickly stifled. The orchestra faltered. House lights blazed on prematurely. Chaos erupted. From Box A, Lady Victoria's voice rose in a scream that shattered the auditorium's glamour like crystal under a hammer. Reginald, oh God, someone help, he's dead. The curtain crashed down. Actors froze mid-gesture. Ushers rushed the aisles. Poirot was already moving, Hastings at his heels. They reached Box A as Inspector Japp, coincidence or fate, pushed through the opposite door, red-faced and panting. Poirot, what the devil? Later! Inspector, Poirot snapped. Secure the exits, no one leaves. Sir Reginald Harrington sat upright in his velvet chair, eyes staring sightlessly at the stage. Around his thick neck, a silk scarf, emerald green embroidered with a delicate monogram VOH, was twisted tight, the knot cruelly precise. His champagne flute lay overturned on the carpet, a dark stain spreading like spilled blood. Poirot knelt, gloved fingers brushing the scarf. No pulse. The skin was still warm. Death had come within minutes, perhaps seconds of the cry. Hastings swallowed hard. Strangled in a box full of witnesses. Precisely, mon ami, Poirot said, rising. His eyes swept the box, the table, the second glass, half full, lipstick on the rim. Lady Victoria's seat askew. A scrap of paper fluttered beneath the chair, caught in the carpet's pile. Poirot retrieved it with tweezers from his pocket. Scrawled in hasty ink, "Your secrets die with you." Lady Victoria stood trembling in the doorway, supported by an usher. I stepped out for air, the fog, the heat. When I returned, he was like this. Poirot's gaze was gentle but relentless. Madame, the scarf, it is yours? She touched her bare neck, eyes widening. Yes. A gift from Reginald last anniversary. I wore it earlier and must have left it on the chair. Duval appeared, disheveled, cigarette still smoldering. Good God, who could... Elena Rossi pushed through, mascara streaking her cheeks. Reginaldo, no! She collapsed theatrically against Duval, who caught her with ill-concealed irritation. Blaine hovered at the rear, face ashen. Clara Winters stood apart, notebook forgotten, staring at the body with an expression Poirot could not quite read. Horror, certainly, but something else. Triumph? Japp barked orders. Clear the auditorium, seal the doors. Uniforms flooded in. Poirot stepped back, surveying the tableau. The dead man, the weeping wife, the shocked rivals, the silent secretary. The fog outside pressed against the windows like a living witness. The game, he said softly, almost to himself, is most definitely afoot. As constables began herding the audience into the foyer for statements, Poirot slipped the note into an envelope. Somewhere in the theater, a clock struck 11. The Silver Marquee's premiere had become a crime scene, its silver facade tarnished with blood. And Hercule Poirot, his little gray cells already humming like a hive of bees, knew that the curtain had only just risen on the true drama of the night. Chapter 2. The Body in the Box. The Silver Marquee's auditorium, moments earlier a crucible of glamour, had become a tableau of controlled pandemonium. House lights blazed like interrogation lamps. The crimson curtains hung limp, as though exhausted by the drama they had witnessed. Uniformed constables formed a cordon around Box A, their helmets bobbing like black mushrooms in the fog of cigarette smoke that still drifted from the stalls. The audience, silk gowns, white ties, diamond tiaras, milled in the aisles, voices pitched in a dozen registers of shock, indignation, and morbid thrill. Inspector Japp planted himself at the box's threshold, arms akimbo, his walrus mustache bristling with official outrage. Right, nobody in or out till I say, Poirot, you're a civilian, step back. Hercule Poirot, unmoved, adjusted his gloves with the delicacy of a surgeon. Inspector, mon cher Japp, you arrive like the cavalry, admirable but tardy. The horse has already bolted and the stable is on fire. He gestured to the corpse. Permit me. The first moments are the most precious. Japp glowered, but experience had taught him the futility of arguing with the little Belgian when his eyes gleamed that particular shade of green. 5 minutes, Poirot. Then it's my scene. Poirot inclined his head and slipped past the constable guarding the velvet rope. The box smelled of champagne, tuberose, and something sharper. Bitter almonds, faint but unmistakable. He knelt beside Sir Reginald's chair, his movements economical, almost reverent. The dead man's head lolled at an unnatural angle. The emerald scarf, Lady Victoria's monogrammed VH, bit deeply into the flesh. The silk darkened where it had cut off breath and life. No external bruising beyond the ligature mark, no disarranged clothing. Death had been swift, intimate, and, Poirot noted with a shiver of professional admiration, executed in near silence. Captain Hastings hovered at the doorway, his honest face pale. Good Lord, Poirot. Strangled in a theater box with hundreds below, it's impossible. Impossible, Hastings? No, merely improbable, until one understands the method. Poirot's gloved fingers traced the air above the scarf without touching it. Observe the knot, a granny but reversed, left-handed work, and the tension, precise, as though measured by a tailor. Our killer is both strong and meticulous. He lifted the overturned champagne flute with a handkerchief. The crystal rim bore a faint smear of crimson lipstick, Lady Victoria's shade, rouge baiser. The liquid within had soaked into the carpet, leaving a dark rose. Poirot sniffed delicately. Veuve Clicquot, 1928, excellent vintage. But beneath, potassium cyanide, none. Too theatrical. The almond scent is from the scarf itself. Perfume, perhaps. Or a blind. Japp, peering over his shoulder, grunted. Blind? You're saying the murder weapon was scented to confuse? Or to incriminate, Poirot corrected. He turned to the second glass, half full, lipstick on the rim but untouched by the spill. 2 glasses. One drunk, one not. Sir Reginald was not alone when death arrived. Lady Victoria stood just outside the box, supported by an usher, her emerald gown now seeming too vivid against her pallor. I told you I stepped into the corridor for air. The heat, the fog, I was gone scarcely 2 minutes. Her voice trembled, but her eyes flicked to the scarf with something like recognition and dread. Poirot rose, his gaze gentle yet implacable. Madam, the scarf is yours. You wore it earlier? Yes, she whispered. I removed it during the first act, too warm. I must have left it on the chair. Her gloved hand flew to her throat as though feeling the ghost of the silk. Marquis Duval pushed forward, his producer's poise cracking. This is monstrous. Reginald and we had our differences, but murder? His voice carried the tremor of a man calculating how the scandal would affect box office receipts. I was in the stalls, Poirot. Dozens saw me. Poirot's eyebrow arched. Dozens, monsieur? Or merely one overworked usher who glanced your way? He produced the silk thread caught on Duval's cuff the previous evening, now preserved in a small envelope. This matches Lady Victoria's scarf. Explain. Duval's hand flew to his sleeve. I greeted her in the foyer. A brush of fabric, nothing more. You're twisting coincidences. Elena Rossi appeared as if conjured by the mention of her name, mascara streaking her cheeks in theatrical rivulets. Reginaldo! She flung herself toward the body, only to be intercepted by a constable. He promised me the world. Who would... Her gaze fell on Lady Victoria, and the grief curdled into accusation. You! Always jealous of what was between us, Lady Victoria recoiled. Keep your hysterics for the stage, Miss Rossi. My husband was a philanderer, not a saint, but I did not kill him. Geoffrey Blaine, the director, lingered at the rear, his script clutched like a shield. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated. I was backstage, he stammered when Poirot's gaze pinned him. Lighting cues. Final adjustments. The follow-spot operator can confirm. Poirot noted the tremor in Blaine's left hand. Stage fright or guilt. Monsieur Blaine, you climb the catwalk often? Every performance, Blaine said too quickly. Access to the boxes is child's play from above. Clara Winters, the secretary, stood apart, her notebook closed for once. Her face was a mask of professional calm, but Poirot caught the pulse leaping at her throat. Miss Winters, he said softly, you were in the ticket booth during the second act. She nodded. Counting receipts, alone, I'm afraid. No usher to corroborate. Her voice was steady, but her eyes slid to the body, then away. Jap barked orders. Photographer, fingerprints, and someone find the stage manager, Blaine, isn't it? I want every inch of this box searched. A constable lifted a cushion and dislodged a small object. A gold cufflink monogrammed M.D. Duval blanched. Mine. I lost it weeks ago, must have fallen from my sleeve in the interval. Or planted, Poirot murmured. He retrieved the scrap of paper from beneath the chair. The note, your secrets die with you. The handwriting was hurried, but the ink was fresh. This was not in Sir Reginald's pocket when I observed him during the first act. Someone placed it post-mortem. Hastings, regaining color, whispered, a calling card, the killer's signature? Or a distraction, Poirot replied. Theatrical, like everything tonight. The police surgeon arrived, a harried man with a black bag. After a cursory examination, he confirmed, strangulation, ligature mark consistent with the scarf. Time of death, between 10:42 and 10:47 p.m. No other trauma. He was sedated first. Eyes dilated, reflexes absent. Probably chloral hydrate in the champagne. Poirot's mustache bristled with satisfaction. Sedated, then strangled. The killer needed compliance and silence. As the body was covered with a velvet cloth, Poirot stepped back, surveying the box one final time. The almond scent lingered, mocking. The scarf, the glasses, the note, the cufflink, each a piece of a puzzle designed to mislead. Somewhere in the theater, the true weapon, perhaps the sedative's vial, waited. Japp clapped a hand on Poirot's shoulder. "All right, you've had your look. My men will take statements. You can poke about tomorrow." Poirot smiled thinly. "Tomorrow, Inspector, the scent will be cold. But tonight—" His gaze swept the suspects. Lady Victoria's white knuckles, Duval's calculating eyes, Elena's histrionics, Blaine's tremor, Clara's stillness. Tonight, the killer believes the curtain has fallen. But Hercule Poirot, he raises it again. As he turned to leave, a faint sound reached his ears, a soft scrape from the catwalk above, like a rope shifting against wood. He looked up into the shadows but saw nothing, yet the little gray cells tingled. Someone had watched the entire scene unfold. The fog outside pressed thicker against the windows, and somewhere in its depths, a clock struck midnight. The Silver Marquee's premiere was over, but the inquest had only begun. Chapter 3: Shadows of the Past. The Silver Marquee, once a beacon of light and laughter, now crouched in the fog like a wounded animal. Constables guarded every exit. The Marquee's silver letters had been dimmed to a sullen glow. Inside, the auditorium lay empty save for the echo of footsteps and the occasional creak of settling ropes. The stage curtains hung in heavy folds as though reluctant to reveal what they had witnessed. It was past midnight, Thursday bleeding into Friday, 1935, and Hercule Poirot had commandeered the manager's office as his temporary headquarters. The office was a shrine to theatrical excess. Signed photographs of Sarah Bernhardt and Henry Irving gazed down from the walls. A scale model of the theater occupied pride of place on the desk. A half-empty decanter of brandy glinted beside a stack of unpaid bills. Poirot sat in the leather chair, his small feet barely touching the carpet, his hands steepled beneath his chin. Captain Hastings paced, restless as a hound on a scent. "I say, Poirot," Hastings burst out, "this is a rum do, strangled in a box with half of London watching. How the devil did the murderer manage it?" Poirot's eyes, bright as a bird's, flicked to him. "Patience, mon ami. The how is merely the frame. The why is the picture, and the picture it begins to emerge." He rose and crossed to the window. Through the fogged glass, the alley below was a blur of police lanterns. Sir Reginald Harrington, tycoon, impresario, war profiteer, a man who built an empire on the bones of others. Empires, Hastings, breed enemies the way stagnant water breeds mosquitoes. A soft knock interrupted. Inspector Japp entered, rubbing his hands against the chill. "Right, Poirot. Preliminary report. No fingerprints on the scarf. Wiped clean. The almond scent is from Elena Rossi's perfume Nuit d'Amour. She wears it like a signature. The sedative in the champagne was chloral hydrate. Common enough, but the dose was precise. Surgeon says Harrington would have been unconscious within minutes, helpless as a babe." Poirot nodded. "And the note? Paper from the theater's own stationery cupboard. Ink. Standard issue. Handwriting doesn't match any of the principals, but it's hurried. Could be disguised. Or, Poirot mused, dictated under duress. We must examine Sir Reginald's past. Enemies do not spring fully armed from the ether." Japp snorted. "Past? The man's file at the yard is thicker than a Sunday roast. Blackmail, bribery, suspected smuggling during the war, shell casings sold to both sides. But nothing stuck. Too many friends in high places." "Friends," Poirot echoed softly, "and widows, orphans, ruined families. Come, Hastings, we descend into the shadows." They left the office and navigated the labyrinthine backstage corridors. Narrow passages smelling of dust, grease paint, and old ambition. Props loomed like ghosts, a suit of armor from Macbeth, a gilded throne from Antony and Cleopatra, a painted backdrop of a moonlit abbey. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant murmur of constables taking statements in the foyer. Their first stop was the secretary's nook, a cramped alcove beside the stage door. Miss Clara Winters sat at a typewriter, her spectacles reflecting the green glow of a banker's lamp. She looked up as they entered, her face composed but pale. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, the police have already questioned me." "Questions," Poirot said, "are like onions, mademoiselle. One must peel many layers to reach the heart." He perched on the edge of her desk, his gaze kind but relentless. "You were Sir Reginald's shadow for 5 years. You knew his secrets." Clara's fingers tightened on a stack of correspondence. "I was his secretary, not his confessor. Yet you handled his threats." Poirot produced one of the anonymous letters from his pocket, delivered to Clara earlier by a nervous stagehand. The paper was cheap, the message typed, "Your wartime blood money will drown you." Clara's breath hitched. "He received dozens. I filed them. He laughed them off." "Laughed?" Poirot's eyebrow arched. "A man laughs at a wasp until it stings. Tell me of the wartime dealings." She hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. "Shell contracts. He supplied the War Office, millions of casings. But there were rumors. Shipments diverted to neutral ports, profiteering. One factory in Leeds, owned by a Mr. Winters." Her voice cracked. "My father. He invested everything on Sir Reginald's promise of partnership. When the contracts vanished, so did the factory. My father, he took his own life." Hastings shifted uncomfortably. Poirot's expression did not change, but his eyes softened. "And you, mademoiselle? You came to work for the man who ruined your family?" "Debts," she said bitterly. "Mother's sanatorium fees. Sir Reginald offered the position, generous salary, no questions. I thought proximity might yield justice." Her hands clenched. "But I did not kill him." Poirot noted the left-handed grip on the pen tray. "Your alibi, the ticket booth. Alone?" "No one to confirm. The usher was assisting latecomers." A red herring, perhaps, or a void where truth should be. They left her and descended to the props room, a cavernous space beneath the stage. Geoffrey Blaine was there, sorting ropes with mechanical precision. His dinner jacket had been replaced by a sweater. His hair stood on end as though he'd been pulling it. "Monsieur Blaine," Poirot greeted. "You climb the catwalk often?" Blaine started. "Every night, lighting rigs, fly system, it's my responsibility." His voice was hoarse. "I was up there during the second act adjusting the follow spot. The operator saw me." "Yet the catwalk passes directly above Box A," Poirot observed. "A drop of 10 feet, a rope, a scarf, a moment's distraction below." Blaine's face drained of color. I had no reason. Sir Reginald owed me wages, yes, 3 months, but murder?" Poirot picked up a coil of silk rope, identical in texture to the scarf. "This could strangle a man as easily." "It's for Hamlet," Blaine snapped. "The ghost scene. Check the inventory," Hastings whispered. "He's left-handed, Poirot. Saw him sign the call sheet earlier." Poirot filed it away. They moved on. In the costume corridor, Elena Rossi sat before a mirror, removing stage makeup with cold cream. Her eyes were red, but her hands were steady. "You want motive, little man?" she said without turning. "Reginald promised me Hollywood, contracts, introductions. Then he dallied with that Ice Queen Victoria. I found letters, proof he planned to discard me like a worn costume." Poirot examined a row of perfume bottles. Nuit d'Amour stood, prominent. "This scent was on the scarf." Elena laughed, a bitter sound. "Half the chorus girls borrow it. And Victoria. She asked for a drop last week. said it reminded her of Monte Carlo, a planted clue, or careless truth. Lady Victoria awaited them in the green room, wrapped in a sable coat despite the stuffiness. Her poise had returned, but her eyes were haunted. "Ask your questions, monsieur. I have nothing to hide." "Your marriage?" Poirot began. "It was turbulent?" She lit a cigarette with a gold lighter. "Reginald collected wives the way he collected theaters. I was the third. The will, he changed it last month. I inherit the lot, but only if I remain faithful and discreet." His words. Her laugh was hollow. "Discreet, with Elena flaunting herself nightly." "And the scarf?" "I left it in the box. Anyone could have taken it." Poirot produced the dropped earring found earlier, emerald matching her gown. "This was beneath Sir Reginald's chair." Her hand flew to her ear. "I lost it days ago. Someone is framing me." As they left, Poirot paused at a bulletin board, pinned there, a faded newspaper clipping from 1917. "Harrington Industries secures $2 million shell contract." Beneath in red ink, "Blood money." The past, Poirot reflected, was a shadow that followed even into the spotlight. Back in the office, he arranged the clues on the desk. The scarf, the note, the earring, the cufflink, the rope sample. Each suspect has motive, opportunity, a piece of the puzzle, yet the picture is incomplete. Hastings frowned. The sedative, chloral hydrate. Who had access? Blaine keeps a medical kit for stage injuries. Clara handles correspondence, perhaps prescriptions. Elena's dressing room is a pharmacy of potions. Duval entertains in his box, champagne laced with anything. Victoria pours her husband's drinks nightly. A soft scrape overhead, the catwalk again. Poirot's head snapped up. Someone listens. They rushed into the corridor, but the shadows were empty. Only a faint scent of Nuit d'Amour lingered mocking. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The killer believes we chase phantoms, but the little gray cells, they do not sleep. Outside, the fog began to lift, revealing the first pale hint of dawn. The Silver Marquee's secrets were stirring, and Poirot intended to drag them into the light. Chapter 4. Alibis and Deceptions. Dawn crept over London like a guilty conscience, pale light seeping through the high windows of the Silver Marquee and turning the dust motes into slow-dancing ghosts. The theater had not slept, only its pulse had slowed. Constables dozed in the stalls, their helmets tilted over their eyes. A lone cleaner swept cigarette stubs into neat piles. The stage curtains hung as heavy and secretive as a confessional drape. In the manager's office, Hercule Poirot had transformed chaos into order. A blackboard, borrowed from the prompt corner, stood propped against the wall, its surface covered in his neat continental handwriting. Beneath, 5 columns marched like soldiers, Lady V. Duval, Rossi, Blaine, Winters. Each bore scribbled times, motives, contradictions. Poirot stood before it in shirt sleeves, braces taut, his mustache waxed to lethal points. Captain Hastings, bleary-eyed but loyal, poured coffee from a thermos supplied by a sympathetic usher. "Observe, Hastings," Poirot said, tapping the board with a silver pencil. "We have 5 suspects, 5 alibis, and 5 holes large enough to drive a London omnibus through. The task is to discover which hole conceals the fox." Hastings squinted. "Lady Victoria claims she left the box at 10:40 for air, returned at 10:46 to find him dead. That gives her 6 minutes. 6 minutes, Poirot echoed, to administer sedative, wait for unconsciousness, strangle, plant evidence, and compose herself. Possible, but hurried. And the usher saw her in the corridor at 10:43, alone, yes, but visible. He moved to Duval's column. "Monsieur Duval excuses himself from box B at 10:38. Lavatory, he says. Returns at 10:49. The gentleman's is on the mezzanine. Box A is on the grand circle. A detour via the service stairs would take 3 minutes each way, Hastings calculated. Leaves him 4 minutes in the box. Tight. Yet the cufflink, monogrammed MD, was found beneath the chair. Planted or careless? Next, Elena Rossi. She claims to have been on stage from 10:30 until the scream, confirmed by the entire company. But the catwalk above Box A is accessible from the flies. A rope descent, a scarf looped, a swift return possible for an agile actress. Blaine. Catwalk from 10:35, adjusting lights. Operator confirms he was there at 10:40 and 10:45, but between, a gap. Clara Winters. Ticket booth alone, 10:30, 10:50, no witness. Poirot underlined the word alone 5 times. A knock. Inspector Japp entered carrying a cardboard box. Morning, gents. Forensics rushed the champagne glasses, sedative in Sir Reginald's flute only. Precise dose dissolved in the last third. The second glass, Lady Victoria's, clean. Lipstick matches her rouge baiser. No prints on the scarf, but a smudge of cold cream. Stage makeup. Cold cream, Poirot murmured. Actresses, yes, but also secretaries who type late and chafe their fingers. Japp dumped the box on the desk. Inside, the scarf, the note, the cufflink, the earring, a small brown vial labeled chloral hydrate, for stage use only. Found in Blaine's medical kit, Japp said, but the seal was broken weeks ago. Anyone could have pinched a drop. Poirot lifted the vial to the light. And the dosage, measured by an eye accustomed to precision. A director? A secretary? A jealous lover? He summoned the suspects to the auditorium, arranging them on the stage beneath the ghost light, a single bare bulb that cast long, melodramatic shadows. The effect was deliberate. Poirot believed in the psychology of setting. Mesdames, messieurs, he began, pacing like a ringmaster, we play now a different drama. The curtain is up on truth. Let us examine the alibis. He turned to Duval first. Monsieur, you left Box B at 10:38. The lavatory is 30 steps away. Yet a witness, an elderly dowager in the stalls, saw you ascending the service stairs at 10:39 toward the grand circle. Duval's jaw tightened. I took a wrong turn. The theater is a maze. Indeed. And in that wrong turn you passed Box A? I did not. Poirot produced the cufflink. This was found beneath Sir Reginald's chair. You claim it was lost weeks ago. Yet the carpet was cleaned yesterday. New pile, no dust. It could not have lain there long. Duval swallowed. Planted, I tell you. Next, Elena. Signorina, your perfume clings to the scarf. You lent the bottle to Lady Victoria, yes? A drop, Elena said defiantly. She admired it. And the earring beneath the chair, yours? No, I wear diamonds tonight. She touched her lobes, empty. I lost an emerald pair last week. Someone is framing us all. Blaine shifted nervously. The vial, yes, it's mine. But half the company uses it for nerves. I dosed myself before the matinee yesterday. Poirot's eyes narrowed. You are left-handed, monsieur. The knot on the scarf. Reversed granny, left-handed. Blaine paled. Coincidence, Clara Winters spoke last, voice steady. I was in the booth. The takings matched the ticket stubs. I had no reason, Poirot interrupted gently. Except your father, mademoiselle. The factory, the suicide. Silence fell like a guillotine. Lady Victoria's cigarette trembled. I saw Marcus near the box stairs at 10:41. He lied. Duval shot to his feet. Liar yourself! You were gone longer than 6 minutes. I timed it. Accusations ricocheted like bullets. Elena slapped Duval. Blaine shouted about unpaid wages. Clara stood frozen, notebook clutched to her chest. Poirot raised a hand. Enough! You reveal yourselves with every word. The killer sows discord, hoping we chase shadows. He signaled Jap, who produced a stoppered flask. The dregs from Sir Reginald's glass, sent to the lab. The sedative was mixed with absinthe. Who drinks absinthe backstage? Blaine flushed. I keep a bottle for inspiration. Yet the taste was masked by champagne. Clever. Poirot paced to the orchestra pit, where a constable had laid out the physical evidence on a baize cloth. He lifted the scarf. Observe the weave. Silk from Lion Rare. Lady Victoria's, yes, but purchased by Sir Reginald in Paris last month. The receipt was in his wallet. He turned to Clara. You booked the trip, mademoiselle? She nodded. His diary. I arranged everything. Poirot's voice softened. Including the purchase of a second identical. Scarf? Gasps. Clara's composure cracked. I don't... 2 scarves, Poirot continued. One worn by Lady Victoria, one kept in the office for emergencies. The killer substituted them. The monogram is embroidered, not printed. Easy to duplicate. He produced a second scarf from his pocket, identical but pristine. Found in your desk drawer, mademoiselle, wrapped around a bottle of chloral hydrate, your fingerprints on the glass. Clara backed away. No, But Poirot was not finished. The note, typewriter ribbon from your machine, the earring stolen from Elena's dressing room, planted to implicate Lady Victoria, the cufflink taken from Duval's coat in the cloakroom, the rope sample cut from the flies to test the knot. You orchestrated every false clue, mademoiselle, using the other's secrets as camouflage. Lady Victoria whispered, Why? Poirot's gaze was compassionate. Revenge, madam, for a father lost to greed, for a life of servitude to the man who destroyed her family, but revenge is a dish that poisons the chef. Clara bolted, heels clattering across the stage. Jap lunged, but she was swift, darting into the wings. A crash, a cry. Constables pursued. Poirot did not move. She will not escape. The theater is sealed. Moments later, Jap returned, Clara in custody, wrists cuffed. Her spectacles were askew, her bun unraveled. He deserved it, she spat. Every penny he earned was stained with blood. Poirot sighed. Justice, mademoiselle, is not yours to dispense. That is the tragedy. As Clara was led away, the ghost light flickered. The suspect stood in stunned silence, acquitted, yet tainted. The fog outside had lifted, weak sunlight gilded the auditorium. Hastings exhaled. Case closed, then? Poirot shook his head. The killer is caught, mon ami. But the shadows of the past, they linger. Come. We have a statement to give the press, and Hercule Poirot does not like to be misquoted. He adjusted his tie, smoothed his mustache, and stepped into the light. The Silver Marquee's premiere had ended in tragedy, but order, at last, had been restored. Chapter 5, Whispers in the Wings. The Silver Marquee at 6:30 in the morning was a theater stripped of illusion. The house lights were up, merciless, exposing every scuff on the parquet, every frayed edge of velvet. The ghost light still burned center stage, but its glow now seemed feeble against the gray daylight leaking through the high, clear stories. The air smelled of cold coffee, stale cigarette smoke, and the metallic tang of fear. Clara Winters had been taken away in a Black Maria 20 minutes earlier, her confession ringing in the rafters like a final curtain line. Yet Hercule Poirot stood alone beneath the proscenium arch, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the empty auditorium as though it might speak. Captain Hastings approached, carrying 2 enamel mugs of railway station tea. I say, Poirot, you look as if you've seen a ghost. Clara's in the cells, the evidence is locked up, Jap's typing his report. Case closed, what? Poirot accepted the tea but did not drink. Closed, Hastings? No. A confession is merely the final act of a play that has been poorly rehearsed. Certain details, they refuse to lie flat. He gestured to the stage. Regardez. The scarf, the sedative, the planted earring, all perfect misdirection. Yet the timing. Clara was in the ticket booth from 10:30. To reach Box A, administer the chloral, strangle Sir Reginald, plant the cufflink, and return. 12 minutes at least. The booth is 60 yards away through 2 locked doors and a corridor of ushers. She would have been seen. Hastings frowned. But she confessed. Confessed to hatred, yes, to murder? Her words were theatrical. He deserved it. A cry from the heart, not a blueprint of the crime. A soft clatter echoed from the flies. Poirot's head snapped up. There! You hear? The theater breathes. They climbed the iron ladder to the grid, boots ringing on rungs still warm from the spotlights. The catwalk was a spider's web of ropes and pulleys, the air thick with dust and the scent of hot metal. A single work light illuminated a patch of planking where fresh sawdust had been scattered, someone concealing footprints. Poirot knelt, observed the grain, disturbed here, here, and here. He traced a shallow groove. A rope dragged across, then coiled. Someone descended to Box A from above after the house lights dimmed for the second act. Hastings whistled. Blaine was up here, he admitted it. Blaine is left-handed, yes, the knot was left-handed, but the rope groove is right-handed friction. Curious. They followed the catwalk to the fly rail. A sandbag counterweight hung askew, its rope sliced clean. Recently, the fibers still pale. Poirot measured the drop with his eye. 10 feet to the box rail. A practiced stagehand could lower himself in silence, loop the scarf, ascend before the body slumped. A glint beneath the sandbag caught his attention. He retrieved it with tweezers. A tiny mother-of-pearl button, monogrammed G.B. Geoffrey Blaine. Blaine's waistcoat, Hastings said. He was wearing it last night. Yet he claims he never left the lighting platform. Poirot pocketed the button. We must speak with the follow-spot operator. They descended to the auditorium. The young operator, a freckled lad named Tommy Price, was being questioned by a constable in the stalls. He jumped to his feet when Poirot approached. Mr. Blaine was with me, sir, swear on me, mum. From 10:35 till the scream, never left the platform. Poirot's gaze was gentle. And yet, mon petit, a button from his waistcoat lies on the catwalk. Explain. Tommy flushed. Well, he did step away once. Said he heard a noise in the flies. Gone maybe 2 minutes, I kept the spot on Miss Rossi. Didn't look up. 2 minutes, Poirot repeated. Enough for a desperate man. They found Blaine in the props room, packing a trunk with mechanical precision. His hands shook as he folded a velvet cloak. Monsieur Blaine, Poirot said softly, the button. It betrays you. Blaine froze. I lost it days ago. On the catwalk? After slicing a counterweight rope? Poirot produced the button. You descended to Box A, looped the scarf, your own silk rope cut to length, then returned. The sedative was already in the champagne administered earlier. Blaine's shoulders sagged. You don't understand. Harrington was ruining me. 3 months' wages withheld, the theater mortgaged to the hilt. He threatened to sell to Duval, turn my life's work into a cinema palace. I confronted him in the interval. He laughed. Said I was expendable. So you planned murder? No, I only meant to frighten him. I keep chloral for migraines. Slipped a drop into his glass when I passed the box before curtain. Then during the act I lowered the rope, looped it round his neck from above just to choke him unconscious, make him sign the wage check. But he struggled. The knot tightened. I panicked, cut the rope, fled. Hastings recoiled. Good Lord, you killed him by accident? Blaine's laugh was hollow. Accident? The courts won't see it that way. Clara's confession, she gave me the idea. She hated him too. I planted the evidence in her desk to let her take the blame. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And the note? Typed on her machine. I wore her gloves. Clever, Poirot said. Well, but not clever enough. The rope groove. Right-handed. You are right-handed, monsieur. Clara is not. Blaine crumpled. I didn't mean... Japp burst in, summoned by a whistle. Blaine, you're nicked. As the director was led away, Poirot turned to the stage. The ghost light flickered, then steadied. The theater exhaled. Hastings scratched his head. Clara's confession was false? A noble lie, Poirot said. She suspected Blaine, hoped to shield the company from further scandal. But truth, mon ami, is a harsh taskmaster. Outside, the sun rose fully, gilding the marquee. The Silver Marquee would open again. New management, new dreams. But the shadows of that night would linger in the wings, whispering whenever the curtains rose. Chapter 6. The Hidden Ledger. The Silver Marquee at 8 o'clock on a Friday morning was a theater in mourning. The marquee lights were dark. Black crepe had been draped over the box office window. A constable stood guard at the stage door, his breath fogging in the October chill. Inside, the auditorium felt cavernous and cold, the ghost light now extinguished, replaced by the harsh glare of police arc lamps. The stage had been stripped of shadows of deceit scenery. Only a single table remained, covered in green baize and littered, with evidence bags. Hercule Poirot moved among them like a priest at an altar, his gloved fingers reverent. Captain Hastings, fortified by a bacon sandwich from a nearby cafe, watched in awe. I say, Poirot, you've turned the place into Scotland Yard's annex. Japp's letting you run the show? Japp, Poirot replied, not looking up, recognizes that order and method are the twin pillars of detection. He investigates with the enthusiasm of a bulldog, I with the precision of a watchmaker. We complement. He lifted a sealed bag containing the emerald scarf. Blaine's confession ties the physical knots, yet the financial threads remain tangled. Sir Reginald was strangled, yes, but empires are murdered by ledgers long before silk. A side door opened. Inspector Japp entered, carrying a battered tin box. Found this in Harrington's private safe behind a false panel. Combination was his wedding date. Sentimental old devil. Thought you'd want first look. The box yielded a leather-bound ledger, its pages warped with age and secrecy. Poirot donned spectacles and opened it beneath a lamp. Columns of figures marched in Harrington's spidery hand. Dates, sums, cryptic initials. Hastings peered over his shoulder. Looks like Greek to me. Greek, Hastings? No. It is the language of greed. Poirot's finger traced a line. 1917, 50,000 to MD saw Marcus Duval, repaid 1920 with interest. Yet Duval claimed Harrington owed him thousands. Japp whistled. Blackmail? Or investment, Poirot murmured. Turn the page. There, CW, 2,000 monthly, 1930-35, Clara Winters. Her salary, Hastings said. Generous, but... Generous? Poirot's eyebrow arched. A secretary earns $300 a year. This is hush money. Another entry. ER, Monte Carlo, 1934, 10,000, Elena Rossi. The Hollywood contract that never was, Poirot noted. And finally, GB, 514 Oct, 1935, Jeffrey Blaine, 3 days ago. Poirot closed the ledger. Sir Reginald bought silence the way others buy cigars. But silence, mes amis, has a price that rises with desperation. They moved to Harrington's office, a mahogany shrine above the dress circle. The safe gaped open. Papers littered the carpet like confetti after a funeral. Poirot knelt, sifting with care. Beneath a stack of contracts, he found a second ledger, smaller, its cover cracked. This one was in Clara Winters' neat copperplate. Her private record, Poirot said. See, cross-references to the master, but here... He tapped a page. Payments from Harrington to an account in Zurich. Initials, VH. Lady Victoria? Hastings gasped. Or a ghost, Poirot said. The amounts match her dress allowance, yet she claimed penury. A soft click. The door had opened silently. Lady Victoria stood there, veiled in black, a silhouette of grief. You pry into the dead, Monsieur Poirot. Have you no decency? Decency, madam, is the luxury of the innocent. Sit. He indicated a chair. She obeyed, spine rigid. Poirot laid the small ledger before her. These payments to VH, your initials, yet your husband's will leaves you everything. Why the secret account? Her gloved hands clenched. Reginald distrusted banks after the crash. He funneled money to Switzerland for security. I knew nothing of the ledger. Poirot's gaze was gentle but relentless. You signed the transfer forms. Your handwriting matches. She paled. He forged my signature, a habit of his. Perhaps. Poirot produced a fountain pen. Right, the quick brown fox. She hesitated, then complied. The script was identical. Liar, Japp growled. Lady Victoria's composure cracked. He was bleeding the theater dry, selling assets to Duval under the table. I discovered the Zurich account last month, intended to confront him after the premiere, but someone silenced him first. Poirot turned to the window. Below in the alley a figure darted. Marcus Duval, coat collar up, clutching a briefcase. Our producer flees, curious. They descended swiftly. Duval was at the stage door arguing with the constable. Police business, man, let me pass. Poirot's voice cut like a whip. Monsieur Duval, the ledger damns you. 50,000 in 1917, repaid, yet you claim debt. Explain. Duval's smile was oily. Ancient history. War profiteering, everyone did it. Harrington held the promissory note over me for years. I paid in full. Yet last week, Poirot said, producing a telegram from his pocket, you wired Zurich, transfer accepted, silence assured. The same account as Lady Victoria's. Duval blanched. Coincidence? Japp snapped cuffs on him. You're coming with me, sunshine. As Duval was led away, Poirot returned to the office. Elena Rossi awaited, smoking a cigarette in a jade holder. You summon me like a stage manager, little man. I have a matinee in 2 hours. Another theater, another play. Your alibi holds, Poirot said. Yet your perfume lingers on the scarf. You lent the bottle to Clara. Clara borrowed it yesterday, said she had a headache. Elena's eyes narrowed. She played us all, no? Perhaps, Poirot said. Or perhaps the bottle was returned, empty. He opened Clara's desk drawer. Inside, the Nuit d'Amour bottle, a third empty, and a glass dropper stained with residue. Chloral hydrate dissolves in perfume as easily as champagne, a drop on the scarf to mask the sedative's taste when Sir Reginald inhaled. Hastings shuddered. Diabolical. The final piece fell into place in the props room. Blaine, under guard, sat on a trunk. The rope, Poirot said. You cut it for the ghost scene in Hamlet. Yet the groove on the catwalk was fresh. You rehearsed the descent? Blaine nodded dully. Weeks ago. Harrington laughed. Said I'd hang myself with it one day. Poirot lifted a length of silk cord from the trunk. This matches the scarf's weave. You substituted Clara's spare scarf for the rope. Left-handed knot to implicate her, right-handed descent to conceal your path. Blaine buried his face in his hands. I only wanted my wages. Back in the auditorium, Poirot assembled the surviving players. Lady Victoria, Elena, the arrested Duval and Blaine in cuffs. Clara Winters was brought from the cells, wrists bound, eyes defiant. Mesdames, Messieurs, Poirot began. The ledger reveals a conspiracy of silence. Sir Reginald blackmailed you all. Duval with old debts, Elena with broken promises, Blaine with wages, Clara with her father's ruin, Victoria with forged accounts. Each of you had motive. but only one had the precision to orchestrate murder as misdirection. He turned to Clara. You discovered the Zurich account, mademoiselle. You typed the transfer forms. You knew Sir Reginald planned to flee to Switzerland after the premiere, leaving the theater bankrupt and his wife penniless. You sedated the champagne during the interval, using Elena's perfume bottle as a dropper. You watched from the booth as Blaine descended, strangled Sir Reginald with the substituted scarf, and planted evidence to frame the others. You confessed to protect the company, but you orchestrated the crime. Clara's laugh was bitter. You give me too much credit, monsieur. I hated him, yes, but I was in the booth. Poirot produced a ticket stub. This stub, Box A, Seat 2, issued at 10:25, Lady Victoria's seat. Yet she sat alone. You took her place briefly, passed the drugged glass, then returned to the booth. The usher remembers a lady in navy, your coat. Silence. Then Clara crumpled. He destroyed my father. I wanted him to feel helpless. Just once. Jap cuffed her beside Blaine. Conspiracy to murder. You'll both swing. As they were led away, Poirot faced the remainder. The ledger goes to the creditors. The theater survives, under new management. Lady Victoria whispered, And justice? Poirot's eyes were sad. Justice, madame, is a ledger of its own. Some debts are never repaid. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The Silver Marquee's doors opened to the public. New play, new scandal. But the whispers in the wings would echo for years. Chapter 7. Threads unraveling. The Silver Marquee at 10 o'clock on Friday morning had become a hive of controlled chaos. Reporters clustered at the stage door like starlings, flashbulbs popping. Constables formed a blue line to hold them back. Inside, the auditorium smelled of chalk dust and resignation. The green baize table now groaned under the weight of every ledger, letter, and scrap of evidence the police had unearthed. Hercule Poirot stood at its center, a small, immaculate figure in a charcoal suit, his hands moving over the items with the reverence of a jeweler appraising flawed diamonds. Captain Hastings, fortified by a second breakfast, watched in admiration. I say, Poirot, you've turned the place into a courtroom. Clara and Blaine are in the van, Duval's screaming for his solicitor, and Lady Victoria's threatening to sue the yard. Yet you look as calm as if you're arranging flowers. Poirot's green eyes glinted. Flowers, Hastings. No. These are the petals of truth, and some are wilted with lies. He lifted the emerald scarf, now sealed in cellophane. Observe the knot. Left-handed, yet the final twist is right-handed, a contradiction. Clara is left-handed, Blaine is right. One tied, one adjusted. He laid the scarf beside the smaller ledger. Clara's private record. See the ink smudges, left thumb. Yet the transfer forms to Zurich bear right thumb prints. Lady Victoria's hand, yes, but guided. Hastings frowned. Guided. You mean patience. Poirot produced a fountain pen and a sheet of theater notepaper. Right, mon ami, the quick brown fox. Hastings obeyed. Poirot compared the script to the transfer forms. Your hand is firm, yet the forms tremble. Nerves or a hand over another. A side door opened. Inspector Japp entered, leading Lady Victoria by the elbow. Her black veil was lifted, her face was marble pale. You drag me here like a common criminal, Monsieur Poirot. My husband is dead, the theater in ruins, and you play parlor games. Parlor games, madame? Poirot's voice was silk over steel. Sit. We examine the final act. He arranged the suspects in a semicircle on the stage. Lady Victoria center, Elena Rossi smoking defiantly to her left, Marcus Duval in cuffs to her right, Geoffrey Blaine and Clara Winters flanked by constables. The ghost light had been relit. It cast long shadows that danced like accomplices. Mesdames, Messieurs, Poirot began pacing, We have confessions, alibis, ledgers, and lies. Let us untangle the threads. He turned to Clara. You hated Sir Reginald for your father's ruin. You typed the Zurich transfers, yet the signature is Lady Victoria's, guided by your hand over hers during a secretarial lesson. You sedated the champagne in the interval using Elena's perfume bottle. You watched from the booth as Blaine descended the catwalk, strangled Sir Reginald with the substituted scarf, and planted evidence. You confessed to protect the company, but you orchestrated the crime. Clara's eyes blazed. I wanted him to suffer, yes, but I was in the booth. Poirot produced the ticket stub. Issued at 10:25 to Box A, Seat 2. Lady Victoria sat alone. You took her place briefly, past the drugged glass, then returned. The usher remembers a lady in navy. Clara's defiance cracked. He destroyed my father. I wanted him helpless. Next, Blaine. You cut the rope, descended, tied the knot. Yet the final twist is right-handed, your hand. You adjusted after Clara's left-handed tie, ensuring the knot held. Blaine nodded dully. She promised me my wages if I helped. I didn't know it would kill him. Poirot faced Duval. You wired Zurich to confirm the transfer. You planned to buy the theater with Harrington's own money, then silence him. Duval sneered. He was a parasite. I'd have paid. Elena laughed bitterly. And I was to be your star? You promised me Hollywood, Marcus, but it was always the theater you wanted. Lady Victoria's voice cut like crystal. All of you vultures. Reginald was flawed, but he built this place. I discovered the Zurich account last month. I confronted him. He laughed, said I'd sign anything to keep my jewels. Clara offered to help with the paperwork. I thought she meant divorce papers. Poirot's gaze softened. You signed the transfers, madame, but under duress. Clara held the pen, you the hand. A forgery of complicity. He lifted the smaller ledger. The final entry, 14 October, 5,000 to VH. But the ink is fresh, the paper creased. Written yesterday, post-mortem, Clara's insurance policy, to implicate you if the plan failed. Lady Victoria gasped. She used me. Poirot turned to the audience of constables and reporters allowed in for the denouement. The conspiracy is thus. Clara masterminded, Blaine executed, Duval financed, Elena distracted with her perfume, Lady Victoria unwittingly enabled. Each thread pulled tight, yet the pattern is now clear. He produced a final item, a torn theater program found in the catwalk dust. Page 17 missing, the page listing the catwalk diagram. Clara tore it to conceal the descent route. Japp stepped forward. Clara Winters, Jeffrey Blaine, Marcus Duval, conspiracy to murder Lady Victoria Harrington, accessory after the fact for the forged transfers. Elena Rossi released but don't leave town. As the prisoners were led away, Poirot faced the empty seats. The theater is a place of illusion, mes amis, but murder is the ultimate sleight of hand. The little gray cells, they see through the smoke and mirrors. Hastings exhaled. Case closed, then? Poirot smiled faintly. Closed, oui, but the echoes remain. Come, we have a statement for the press, and Hercule Poirot does not like to be misquoted. Outside, the sun was high. The Silver Marquee's doors opened to the public, new play, new scandal. But the threads of that night had unraveled, and justice at last had taken its bow. Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. The Silver Marquee at noon on Friday was no longer a theater, but a mausoleum of scandal. The house lights blazed pitiless, exposing every tear in the plush, every smear on the brass rails. Reporters had been herded into the stalls like cattle, notebooks poised, pencils scratching. A lone constable guarded the orchestra pit, where the evidence table now stood beneath a velvet cloth like a catafalque. The ghost light had been extinguished. In its place, a single spotlight carved a perfect circle center stage. Hercule Poirot stood within it, Small, immaculate, the eye of the storm. Captain Hastings lingered at the wings, whispering to Inspector Japp. He's going to do it again, isn't he? The grand reveal. Only this time half the cast is already in cuffs. Japp grunted. Let him have his moment. The Yard gets the collars, Poirot gets the headlines. Fair trade. The suspects, or what remained of them, were arranged on the stage like chess pieces after checkmate. Lady Victoria Harrington sat center, veiled in black, spine straight as a ramrod. To her left, Elena Rossi smoked a cigarette in a jade holder, eyes defiant. Marcus Duval, wrists cuffed, stood flanked by constables. Geoffrey Blaine and Clara Winters were absent, already en route to Wormwood Scrubs for processing. The air crackled with tension, thick as the fog that had lifted outside. Poirot raised a hand. Silence fell like a curtain. Mesdames, messieurs, he began, voice carrying to the back row without effort. We gather not for a performance but for a reckoning. Sir Reginald Harrington was strangled in Box A at 10:45 p.m. We have confessions, alibis, ledgers, and lies. Yet the little gray cells, they demand perfection. And perfection, it has been lacking. He stepped to the evidence table, lifting the velvet cloth. The emerald scarf lay coiled like a sleeping viper. The murder weapon, left-handed knot, right-handed twist, 2 hands, 2 killers. Gasps rippled. Lady Victoria's gloved fingers clenched. Poirot continued. Clara Winters typed the Zurich transfers, sedated the champagne, tore the catwalk diagram. Geoffrey Blaine cut the rope, descended, tied the knot. Marcus Duval financed the silence. Elena Rossi provided the perfume bottle. Lady Victoria signed the forms. A conspiracy of 5, yet one thread does not fit. He produced the smaller ledger, Clara's private record. The final entry, 5,000 to VH, written post-mortem. Clara's insurance, yes, but the ink is indigo, not black. Clara's typewriter ribbon is black. The pen in her desk is black. This entry was written by another hand. He turned to Lady Victoria. Madame, your fountain pen, the one you used to sign the transfers. May I? She hesitated, then drew it from her handbag. Silver monogrammed V.H. Poirot uncapped it. Indigo ink. Yesterday, he said, you wrote a note to your solicitor. The ink matches. You entered the office after the murder, added the entry to implicate Clara further. Your revenge for being used. Lady Victoria's veil trembled. She manipulated me. I wanted her to hang. Poirot's gaze was gentle. Vengeance, madame, is a poison that kills the vessel. You are accessory after the fact, but not murderer. He faced Elena. Signorina, the perfume bottle. You lent it to Clara, yes, but you refilled it with chloral hydrate from Blaine's kit. You knew the plan. You distracted the audience with your monologue while Blaine descended. Elena crushed her cigarette. I wanted the theater saved. Duval promised me the lead in his new production. Poirot turned to Duval. You wired Zurich at 10:30, confirming the transfer. You planned to buy the theater with Harrington's own money, then silence him. You provided the cufflink, planted by Blaine to implicate yourself, a double bluff. Duval sneered. Clever little man, but you'll never prove it. Poirot produced a telegram. From Zurich, 10:32 p.m., funds received, silence assured, your signature. Duval's composure cracked. Poirot stepped to the edge of the spotlight. The conspiracy is complete. Clara masterminded, Blaine executed, Duval financed, Elena distracted, Lady Victoria enabled. Each thread pulled tight, yet the pattern is now clear. He signaled Japp. Arrest Lady Victoria Harrington for accessory after the fact. Elena Rossi for conspiracy. The others remain as charged. Constables moved. Lady Victoria stood, veil falling away. Reginald was a monster, but he was my monster. Clara promised me freedom. Elena laughed bitterly. Freedom? You're all fools. The theater eats its own. As they were led away, Poirot faced the reporters. The Silver Marquee will rise again, but tonight the curtain falls on greed. Hastings exhaled. Case closed, then. Poirot smiled faintly. Closed, oui, but the storm has passed, and the little gray cells, they rest. Outside, the sun was high. The Silver Marquee's doors opened to the public. New play, new scandal. But the gathering storm had broken, and justice at last had taken its bow. Chapter 9. The little gray cells at work. The Silver Marquee at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon was a theater emptied of everything but truth. The reporters had been ejected. The constables stood down to the foyer. The ghost light burned alone, a single eye in the dark. The stage was bare save for a mahogany desk dragged from the office, its surface now a battlefield of evidence. The emerald scarf, the 2 ledgers, the indigo pen, the torn program, the perfume bottle, the cufflink, the rope sample, the ticket stub. Hercule Poirot stood behind the desk like a conductor before a silent orchestra, his small hands resting on the wood, his eyes half closed in concentration. Captain Hastings sat in the front row of the stalls, notebook open, pencil poised. "I say, Poirot, you've cleared the house. Jap's taken the lot. Clara, Blaine, Duval, Elena, even Lady Victoria. The yard's typing charges faster than a West End stenographer. Yet you look as if the curtain's still up." Poirot opened his eyes. They were very green, very bright. "The curtain, Hastings, is never down while a single thread dangles. Observe." He lifted the emerald scarf. "Left-handed knot, right-handed twist. 2 hands. We have them. Yet the timing, 10:42 to 10:47, 5 minutes for sedation, strangulation, planting of evidence, escape. Clara in the booth, Blaine on the catwalk, Duval in the stalls, Elena on stage, Lady Victoria in the corridor. All accounted for. Yet the champagne was drugged before the second act. Who poured it?" He laid the scarf aside and took up the smaller ledger, Clara's. The indigo entry written post-mortem by Lady Victoria, proven. Yet the Zurich transfers began in 1930. Clara was 20 then, a typist in Leeds. She could not have initiated them. Hastings frowned. Then who? Poirot's smile was thin. Patience. He produced a photograph, blown up from the premiere program. Sir Reginald in box A, glass raised in toast. Behind him a reflection in the box's mirror, a gloved hand pouring from a flask into the champagne bucket. "The ice bucket," Poirot said, "refilled at 10:25 by the usher. Yet the sedative was in the glass, not the bottle. Someone added it after the toast, before the slump." He turned to the wings. A shadow moved. Geoffrey Blaine stepped into the light, wrists cuffed, escorted by a constable. His face was gray. "Monsieur Blaine," Poirot said softly, "you confessed to the descent, the knot. Yet you were on the catwalk at 10:40 and 10:45. The usher refilled the bucket at 10:25. You could not have poured the drug." Blaine's voice was hoarse. "Clara gave me the vial. I passed it to—" "Non." Poirot lifted the perfume bottle. "This contained the chloral dissolved in Nuit d'Amour. Elena lent it to Clara. Clara refilled it from your kit. But the dropper—" He held up a glass pipette, stained. "Found in the ice bucket's false bottom. A stage prop, hollowed to hold liquid. The usher carried it in, poured the drugged champagne, left the pipette. Who designed the bucket?" Blaine swallowed. "I did. For Macbeth, the blood effect." Poirot nodded. "You built the weapon but did not wield it," he signaled. The constable brought Clara Winters forward. Her spectacles were cracked. Her bun had unraveled. "You typed the transfers," Poirot said. "But the Zurich account was opened in 1928, before you joined Harrington. The signature on the original form is not Lady Victoria's. It is yours, mademoiselle, forged in a child's hand, practiced over years. Clara's eyes widened. I was 23. He promised me a future. Poirot's voice was gentle. He promised many things. You discovered the account last month, realized he planned to flee. You recruited Blaine to descend, Elena to distract, Duval to finance, Lady Victoria to sign. You poured the drugged champagne yourself using the usher's bucket, then returned to the booth. The ticket stub was your alibi, issued to yourself, pocketed. Clara laughed, a broken sound. You'll never prove it. Poirot produced a final item, a theater pass, laminated, stamped 1025. Box A, seat 2, found in your coat pocket. The usher remembers a lady in navy entering the service. Corridor at 1024, exiting at 1027. 3 minutes to pour, to poison, to return. Silence. Then Clara crumpled. He took everything. My father, my future. I wanted him to know helplessness. Poirot turned to the empty seats. The conspiracy collapses. Clara masterminded from the booth, using the bucket as her weapon. Blaine descended to tighten the knot, believing it a scare. Duval financed the silence. Elena distracted. Lady Victoria was a pawn. The little gray cells, they see the pattern. Jap entered, hat in hand. Charges amended. Clara Winters, murder. Blaine, manslaughter. Duval, conspiracy. Elena, accessory. Lady Victoria released, no charge. As Clara was led away, Poirot faced the ghost light. The theater is a place of illusion, mes amis, but truth is the final act. Hastings closed his notebook. Case closed, then? Poirot smiled faintly. Closed, oui, the little gray cells, they rest. Outside, the sun was high. The Silver Marquee's doors opened to the public, new play, new scandal. But the little gray cells had spoken, and justice at last had taken its bow. Chapter 10. The Grand Revelation. The Silver Marquee at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon had the hush of a cathedral after Vespers. The house lights were dimmed to a single spotlight that pinned Hercule Poirot center stage, a small, solitary figure in perfect evening dress, white tie, patent shoes, the famous mustache waxed to symmetrical crescents. The ghost light had been extinguished. In its place, a circle of chairs faced the great detective like a jury box. Every seat was occupied. Lady Victoria Harrington sat front and center, black veil lifted, eyes red but steady. To her left, Elena Rossi, cigarette unlit, jade holder trembling. Marcus Duval, wrists uncuffed but flanked by constables, glared at the floor. Geoffrey Blaine, pale and unshaven, stared at his hands. Clara Winters, spectacles mended with tape, sat apart, her navy coat folded neatly on her lap. Inspector Japp stood at the prompt corner, arms folded, hat in hand. Captain Hastings occupied the conductor's chair in the orchestra pit, notebook closed. He had given up trying to keep pace. Poirot raised a gloved hand. The silence deepened. Mesdames, Messieurs, he began, voice resonant yet intimate. We have reached the final act, not of shadows of deceit, but of the truest drama ever played upon this stage. Sir Reginald Harrington was murdered in Box A between 10:42 and 10:47 p.m. We have chased red herrings, planted clues, forged ledgers, and false confessions. Yet the little gray cells, they demand order, and order at last is restored. He stepped to the evidence table, now draped in midnight blue velvet. One by one, he lifted the exhibits. Item 1. The emerald scarf. Silk from lion, monogram VH, left-handed knot, right-handed twist, 2 hands, 2 intentions. Item 2. The smaller ledger, Clara's. Zurich transfers initiated 1928, forged. Signature of a 23-year-old typist. Clara Winters, you opened the account in your own name, then guided Lady Victoria's hand years later to legitimize it. Clara's chin lifted. He promised me partnership. I was a fool. Item 3. The Hollow Ice Bucket. Designed by Geoffrey Blaine for Macbeth. At 10:25, the usher refilled Box A. You, Clara, entered the service corridor in navy coat, poured drugged champagne from the false bottom, exited at 10:27, 3 minutes. The ticket stub in your pocket, Box A, Seat 2, your alibi and your confession. Item 4. The perfume bottle. Elena Rossi lent it to Clara. Clara dissolved chloral hydrate within, masked the taste with Nuit d'Amour. You, Elena, knew the plan. Your monologue distracted the audience while Blaine descended. Elena crushed the unlit cigarette. I wanted the theater saved, nothing more. Item 5. The rope sample. Cut by Blaine, who believed he was staging a scare. You descended at 10:43, tightened Clara's loose knot, ascended at 10:46. The button from your waistcoat, left on the catwalk, careless. Blaine's voice cracked. She said he'd sign my wages. I didn't mean... Item 6. The telegram. Marcus Duval to Zurich, 10:30 p.m. Funds received. Silence assured. You financed the conspiracy, planning to buy the theater with Harrington's own money. Duval shrugged. Business. Item 7. The indigo pen. Lady Victoria added the final ledger entry post-mortem. Revenge for being manipulated, accessory after the fact but not murderer. Lady Victoria's whisper carried. I wanted her to hang for using me. Poirot replaced the pen. The conspiracy is thus 5 threads, 1 noose. He turned to Clara. You watched from the booth, mademoiselle, as your plan unfolded. You confessed to protect the company, but your true confession is here. He tapped the hollow bucket. The weapon you designed. Clara stood, navy coat slipping to the floor. He took everything. I gave him helplessness in return. Poirot's gaze was compassionate. Justice is not yours to dispense, that is the tragedy. Japp stepped forward. Clara Winters, murder. Geoffrey Blaine, manslaughter. Marcus Duval, conspiracy to murder. Elena Rossi, accessory. Lady Victoria Harrington, released, no charge. Constables moved. Clara did not resist. Blaine wept silently. Duval cursed. Elena lit her cigarette at last, the flame trembling. Lady Victoria rose, veil falling back into place. As they were led away, Poirot faced the empty auditorium. The theater is a mirror, mes amis. It reflects our darkest selves. Sir Reginald built an empire on blood. It ended in silk. Hastings closed his notebook. Case closed, Poirot? Poirot smiled, the first genuine smile of the day. Closed, mon ami. The little gray cells, they rest. He turned to the wings. A stagehand waited with his hat and cane. Poirot donned them with ceremony, then paused beneath the proscenium arch. One final detail. He reached into his pocket and produced a single white camellia. Harrington's boutonniere plucked from the corpse. For the grave. Even monsters deserve flowers. He laid it on the evidence table. The spotlight dimmed. The house lights rose slowly, revealing the Silver Marquee in all its faded glory, scarred but standing. Outside, the October sun gilded the marquee. A new playbill was already being pasted. The Silver Marquee reopens, under new management. The doors swung wide. London's elite queued once more, hungry for drama. But in the wings, the whispers lingered. The ghost light would burn again tonight, and every night for the theater remembers. Poirot stepped into the sunlight. Hastings followed. Behind them, the doors closed with a soft, final thud. The curtain had fallen. The game was over.